This is the 12th time that I, as director of the Greenlees School, will introduce the winner of the James W. Schwartz Award for Outstanding Contributions to Journalism and Mass Communication. It is the highest honor that Iowa State University bestows for exemplary achievement in our discipline. Some of the world's best journalists and practitioners who have won this award previously, they include Pulitzer Prize winners, 4 of them, Medal of Freedom winner, as well as nationally known journalists like the AP's Terry Anderson and CNN's Christine Romans. Diane and Bob Greenlee have an illustrious record of public service and accomplishment in community, media, and entrepreneurial ventures. It all began at Iowa State University. As so many of our alumni do, Bob and Diane met here as students when Bob managed the campus radio station, KISU, and Diane worked as the station's first woman disc jockey. Isn't that great? They moved to Boulder, Colorado.
Music to study by.
Percy Sledge. Percy Faye, that's it. Okay, she's going to tickle my funny bone the same way I tickle yours sometimes, Carol. They moved to Boulder and purchased an AM radio station that eventually became a top franchise in the Denver metro market. They married, had a family, expanded their media acquisitions. Then they sold some of those stations, co-founded Craftworks Restaurants and Breweries, which owns some 200 restaurants throughout North America, including brands like Old Chicago and Rock Bottom Brewery. Bob has served as council member and later mayor of the city of Boulder. Diane has also served on numerous boards, including Iowa State University's Board of Governors. They established the Greenlee Family Foundation, a grant-making organization, and currently serve as president and partner of Centennial Investment Management Company, a real estate and venture capital firm. Okay, now that's what they have done, and this is what I have observed. That record of success is built on a mixture of inspiration, insight, and innovation. Plus one more ingredient that was key in advancing your careers in your communities and our institution, the Greenlee School, and that intangible is love. In the dozen-plus years I have known them, Bob and Diane not only have changed the world around them for the better, they have traveled the world as loving partners. They often speak of the deep love they have for family and friends, many of them on our advisory council. Bob and Diane not only love each other and their family and friends, they love their alma mater. In 1997, they made a magnificent gift to the school that bears their name, and they did so out of love for Iowa State, which brought them together and inspired their lasting bond. And they did so first and foremost for the students, because they identify with the students to this day. They want the best education for the tuition dollar, and they want that tuition dollar to pave the way for success. Finally, they value faculty and staff who also love, inspire, and enlighten students so they can think critically and recognize opportunity. For these and many more reasons, primarily their love for each other and for us, the faculty chose Bob and Diane Greenlee as recipients of the 2015 Schwartz Award. And as director of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication that bears their name, I take great personal pleasure in presenting this award to celebrate their love, their professional careers, and their extraordinary school that bears their name.
Thank you. Coming into this building, there was a cold, dank place back here in 1963 when he and I first started dating seriously. And we got married before I graduated, so I spent a lot of time in this building. And where his office was for student publications is probably over that way somewhere. But Carl Hamilton was an inspiration to Bob, and Jim Schwartz was and Tony Schwartz. Jim and Tony, the wives of the faculty at that time, because they pretty much were all men, adopted me. I was a young woman. We got married in '65. I had my daughter in '67. Both of our kids were born here at Mary Greeley, and so the support that I had as a young mom and a faculty wife was absolutely was responsible for my growing up and becoming an adult. So, your turn.
I did not originally come to Iowa State to enroll in journalism or never even contemplated the possibility of that. I was in telecommunicative arts back in the beginning. It was in the English and speech department.
Oh, you started in engineering.
Well, I started in engineering that lasted a day. I went over to the bookstore. It's a true story. I went over to the bookstore to look at the textbooks for the engineering school, and being an electrical engineer, I got to page 3 and I said, this is not going to happen. I set the book back down and I said, I got to find something else to do, because there was no way I could complete the math, let alone master the slide rule, which you probably never heard of before, but was a requirement to purchase. At any rate, my, I guess, association with journalism began as a result of being in TCA, Telecommunicative Arts. We were required to take courses in journalism, and I came over, and the very first class that I ever had was taught by Jim Schwartz. He was, I guess, he got the short straw, and he had to teach the non-majors about journalism. I distinctly remember learning about journalism from Jim, and through him began to appreciate what the program and what being a journalist was about. One of the very first, if not the first assignments that we had as a class, was to write a 150-word to 200-word story after Jim gave us sort of the background on, and Eric has been through this probably, but he gave us a story, and then he had us take notes, and then we had to sit down and write the story. Well, faithful to my background, I didn't do a very good job in writing it, and I probably got a passing grade only because I made a good attempt. And then he started lecturing about writing and what the lead of a story was, the who, what, when, where, why, you know all that. And so that was an eye-opener to me. I mean, I had read newspapers, but I never made the connection about writing and communicating. Jim taught me that, but went beyond it, because after, I think, rewriting the story, actually his editing what I had written, made me understand what he was getting at. But at the end of the class, and we were back in the quarter system back then, not semester, so it was a rather short, I guess, participation in the journalism program. I thought, well, this is really interesting, and I think I will kind of continue taking courses here to the extent I can. But one of the revealing things was, at the end of the class, I went to Jim and I said, you know, I understand about writing leads now, but the most intriguing thing to me is, when I wrote a lead, I never got to the why. I could write about who, where, when, what. I never got to the why, and he said to me, you know, Mr. Greenlee, you might make a good journalist. 2, it isn't so much what somebody did, somebody said, it's a matter of trying to discover the why. And so that kind of launched me into becoming more involved and interested in what was going on this side of the campus versus that side. I could give you some other Jim Schwartz stories. I won't.
Rod Fox.
Well, and about Rod Fox.
Ed Blinn.
Ed Blinn. There was another man over here that I met whose name was Harry Heath.
Yes.
Michael certainly knows him. And because I was in telecommunicative arts, I kind of attached myself to Harry because he was kind of interested in broadcasting. But I got to tell you, the equipment that was here in the department at that time was so impossible to use that I got kind of sidetracked in terms of, I'm not sure I want to be part of that. You see, back then, they had wire recorders. What a wire recorder is, anybody? It's a World War II relic where recordings were made on a piece of wire in our small laboratories in terms of making recordings. And we were supposed to then sort of patch that all together and make sense out of it. Well, that was a damn near impossibility. But the point was that at least at that time, the department was looking at maybe getting a bit more contemporary in terms of broadcast journalism. And it became very apparent to me in the history and evolution of the department that they made a major commitment when they hired a man who was the voice of Iowa. And his name was Jack Shelley. And those of you who know of Jack, have heard of him, all of a sudden it became very evident to me that the department, Carl Hamilton, Jim Schwartz, the faculty, even maybe to the consternation of Wild Bill Coonerith and some of the others who weren't as enamored of the broadcast medium as I was, but that was a real change.
Yeah.
That's a change in direction. But it demonstrates and shows that this profession is an evolution. It doesn't just start here nor end here. It continues and goes on, and it takes advantage of new ideas and new resources, new gadgets. My God. About 8 years ago, I bought this book called We're All Journalists Now. I don't know if you've ever heard about it or read this, but this really angered me. To take a profession and to say, well, now, Bob's sitting around in his shorts in his den, may have a keyboard and access to people, but does that make me a journalist? And I was angered with the concept. But then the more I read this book, the more I got to an evolution or maybe a revolution in my thinking, which is maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this is a real good thing. I think someone last night at the forum pointed out that sometimes we don't know what opinion writers really think. But a lot of those opinion writers write blogs. And so if we want to discover what maybe the why of a story is, or a column, we can discover that because they have exposed themselves now to the wider audience that gives you an insight into their thinking. So, as I say, I've kind of changed my attitude about it. I think the reality is we are all journalists now. And the reason is we have one of these. We're all millennials now. So I suppose my last and final comment is not only thank you to all of you, but this is a program that will evolve and change, and in another 100 years, someone will be up here hopefully to receive this kind of award or recognition, but it will be a completely different kind of experience for the audience as well as the recipient. So, anyway, thank you all very much.